Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Liz. In today's video, I have some more scrap wood and wood DIYs for you guys, so let's go ahead and jump on in. So for all my DIYs, I will have the measurements and the amount of pieces of wood that you need on the screen so that you can screenshot it and make these projects for yourself. But in this project, I am taking mostly 1x2s. I'm going to have 4 pieces all cut to 5.5 inches, I believe. Like I said, the measurements will be on the screen, and then 4 longer pieces. And then I did take a 6-inch plank of wood and cut that down to 16 inches and 12 inches. So I'm going to start by just staining all of my pieces. This is a Craftsmart stain in brown. I don't believe that they make this anymore, which is really sad because it's one of my favorites, but I have it and I want to use it up. So I'm just going to stain all of my pieces in this stain. Use whatever kind of stain you want. You could just mix paint with some water or just use, your regular kind of stain, really whatever your heart desires. And I want to mention, a lot of people asked where I get scrap wood. I have a ton of it, obviously in my garage. We do a lot of woodwork, but if you are looking for scrap wood, check on your local Facebook Marketplace pages. A lot of people in your area will either be selling it for really cheap or getting rid of it, so just type in wood onto your Facebook Marketplace, see what comes up. If that doesn't work, you could always go to Home Depot or Lowe's, check out their clearance section. You could even ask them if they have scraps that are super discounted or free and see what they say. And that's just a couple good ways to get some scrap pieces of wood, or you can always just go buy some at your local hardware store. And then when everything was dried, I did take it out to my garage with my power sander and I gave everything a good distressing. And then I went ahead and assembled everything. So 4 of these pieces are going to have angled cuts, and these are going to be your legs for your tray. Now you can make the angled cut whatever kind of angle that you want. It's really going to depend on how tall or how wide you want your piece. I just eyeballed it and cut it to the height that I wanted my tray to be. So you'll see when you put the two together, they should match up. Those 2 angled cuts will go right together. I'm going to take some wood glue, and then I'm also going to take some wood glue super glue that I have absolutely been loving for these kinds of projects, because this instantly holds and I can continue to make my projects without having to wait for glue to dry. So I'm going to do that with both of my pieces like this. So in total you have 4 of these pieces. You're going to make 2 of these triangle pieces in total. And now I'm going to measure up about 2.5 inches from the bottom of both of these stands. And this is where I'm going to attach those small 5-inch pieces. Those are going to be kind of the rungs or the support pieces for my 6-inch plank pieces to rest on, so that they have some support where, your tray pieces are going. So I'm just adding my wood glue super glue, and then I'm just going to hold that in place until the super glue takes hold. And I'm going to do this for all 4 of my 5-inch pieces. I'm just going to add them to your little legs, if that's what you want to call them. And I tried my best to get these as even as I possibly could. It's a little difficult. I will say that this isn't the easiest project in the world, but trust me, if I can do it, you can do it. It's really fun, and I do think that it turned out really cute. I didn't have to use any kind of nails, hammers, anything like that. The super glue and the wood glue are holding up perfect. And then for my second tier, I just measured how far apart that I wanted those 2 tiers to be. Added my glue, stuck those down, and I just used that plank of wood to kind of get them as even as I possibly could so that the wood would sit on there nice and level. And then I just added my wood glue and my super glue to all 4 of those on the other end. And then I'm going to take my second pair of legs and add that to it, hold that down for a good 45 seconds, slide my pieces of wood into their little shelves. And that's it. That's all you gotta do. I think this turned out super, super cute, and I think it's such a fun tray. Today's video is a part of a collaboration with Maria from Crafting with Maria. If you haven't checked her out before, what are you waiting for? She creates the most beautiful DIYs. I will have her video and her channel linked in my description box. We wanted to create some scrap wood and just wood DIYs for you guys. So she has more of those over in her video. So if you want some more wood and scrap wood inspiration, make sure that you check out her video and head on over to her channel and let her know that I sent you. Show her some love. I know that you guys will absolutely love the DIYs that she does. And if you guys are coming from Maria's channel, hey, I'm Liz. I love all things DIYs and crafting. If that's something that you enjoy, why don't you click that subscribe button and become part of my little crafting family here on YouTube. And if you guys are enjoying the video so far, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. So for this DIY, you're gonna take a piece of wood, doesn't matter what size. This was just a scrap piece of wood that we had in our garage, and we cut the corners off. And when I say we, I mean my husband. He is so good with angles and measuring and cutting. So I just tell him what I want and he goes out and does it. A lot of times I can do it myself, but it's just so much easier to have him do it for me. Call me lazy, but his stuff always turns out great. So I'm just going to take this, it's in the shape of a tag, and I'm going to stain it in that same stain that we used in the first project. Like I said, it doesn't really matter the size of the wood that you use, just cut it into the shape of a tag. And then I wanted mine to look like it was really distressed, like it had once been painted white and the white paint was chipping off. So I just took a chip brush with some white Waverly chalk paint and I just started distressing the entire tag. Now I'm going to take these washers that I got in a pack of 4 from Lowe's. They are 1/2 inch washers, and I'm going to take one of them and paint it brown. So I just took some brown paint on a sponge and I just started dabbing up and down all over it. And then to make it look a little bit more rustic, I did do the exact same thing with some antique wax right on top of that brown paint, because I did want it to look old and worn. And then I cut out this stencil using my Cricut. It just says Farm Fresh and then has a cow, a pig, and a chicken. And I just thought this was really, really cute. And I actually love the way that this turned out. It turned out completely different than I thought it was going to, but in the end, I absolutely loved it. So I'm just using some of my Expressions vinyl transfer tape and putting this right in the center of where I want it on the tag, removing that transfer tape. I am really quickly going to super glue my washer right in that hole that I drilled out in my garage. I just measured to the size of the hole of the washer and drilled a hole right there where I wanted the washer to be. And then I'm going to take some Waverly chalk paint and ink and celery, and I'm going to use these to stencil my design. So I took a wet sponge and dipped it into my black paint, and I just started bouncing the sponge up and down, just stenciling all over the words, the cow and the pig and the chicken. I didn't do the little leaves and heart in the middle. I wanted to do that with my celery chalk paint, but I love the effect that this sponge had on this because it still was a little bit wet. It went on more of like a stain. It was just a wash of color, and I just thought it turned out really, really cool. So instead of it being a really harsh black, it looks really, really faded and almost like I did an ink transfer with it. I just think that the effect is really, really awesome. So I just gave everything one good coat from the sponge, and then I removed the vinyl, and that's all I did to the front. I didn't have to do any other distressing because everything was just really distressed on its own. So I feel like this method is a huge time saver as well if you're looking for that distressed and rustic look. A wet sponge and some paint can do some wonders. So after I got all the vinyl off there, I took some nautical rope that I picked up from the Dollar Tree, and I just strung it through that hole at the top, tied a big knot at the very top, and that's it for this DIY. I think this turned out really, really adorable, and I gotta say it might be my favorite item from today's video. So for this DIY, I took some 4x4s, just some big old blocks of wood, and I cut them down into 2 different sizes. They will be on the screen right here, and I'm going to paint them with my Waverly chalk paint in white. I did just do 1 coat on both of these blocks, covering all the sides and then covering the top. Now, I thought that I was going to leave it just like this when I first started this project, but I decided that it was looking a little bit too plain for me, and I didn't want to just distress it and have another super distressed project. So I did decide to wrap some painter's tape around them and paint the bottom a different color so that we will have a color block look to these. So I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint and celery, and I didn't really measure when I added the tape. I just went up about however far looked good. I just kind of eyeballed it. And I'm just going to give 1 coat of this celery chalk paint, and I'm going to make sure to paint all the sides and the bottom of the block. Now, while those are drying, I'm going to take 2 mason jar lids. Now, these can be completely different from each other. They don't have to be the exact same. They are the same size, but one is just doesn't have the completed middle while the other one does. And I'm going to take my Waverly chalk paint in truffle, and I'm going to give both of these a good coat of this color. And then once that's dry, to make it look more worn, aged, and antique, kind of that rusted look, I'm going to take my Waverly Wax and Antique, and I'm just going to use a sponge to get that on both of my lids. I just did an up and down bouncing motion with it and tried to make these look as rusted as I possibly could. I'm going to remove the painter's tape from my blocks. I'm going to take those lids and I'm going to use some of my super glue gel, and I'm going to add these to the top portion of our wood blocks. So this is going to make a cute little candle holder. So when you have your candle in here, you won't even be able to tell that one has a bottom and one doesn't. If it really bothers you, you could always paint the inside portion brown instead of having the circle in the middle be white, but it's really just your personal preference. I thought these turned out really, really fun, and the mason jar lids fit my candles perfectly. If you guys didn't know, I actually make and sell wood craft kits over on my website, moredecaldecor.com, where you can purchase some wood themed kits and put them all together, paint them yourself, make them look exactly the way that you want them to. I think that they are so much fun and I love creating them for you guys. So if you want to check them out, I will have it linked in my description box. For this DIY, I am going to grab some more scrap wood from my garage. I am going to take 3 pieces of wood. Now I took one piece and made it into the shape of the house, and then I took a second piece, also cut it into a house shape, but this one is going to be a lot wider and a lot shorter than the first piece. And then I also cut it down the middle. I didn't necessarily need to do this, but depending on how you want to finish this, you could have them cut down the middle like this. You'll see what I mean here in a second, but I'm just going to start by staining all of my pieces in that same brown stain that I've used for my projects today, and I just give everything one good coat. And then, like I said before, you could totally skip the step of cutting these 2 pieces in half because I did end up gluing them back together. But depending on how wide you want your church to be, which is what I am making, you could leave those separate and glue them further apart on the back of your church steeple. Hopefully you understand what I mean, but I'm just going to glue this second piece right to the back of my steeple piece, and you got yourself a cute little church. I think this is so fun, and the wood houses are really popular, but I wanted to try doing something a little bit different, so I made a wood church, and I think it's absolutely adorable. This is what it's going to look like on the front and the back. And then for the front, I just hand painted a door. It looks really messy, and it's totally not perfect, but I think that's what's fun about these rustic DIYs, is that you do not have to be perfect when doing them. I am no artist by any means, and I think, you know, having it kind of look messed up and messy, I like that look. So that's what I decided to do. And then the last thing that I did was take my church out to my garage and use my electric sander on it and rough it up a little bit, add some distressing to it, and I think that it adds such a pretty dimension to it, and I think this piece turned out so dang cute. That's it for today's video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Again, make sure that you go ahead and check out Maria's video linked in my description box. Let me know what your favorite project was, and subscribe if you haven't already. What are you waiting for? It's free. That little button right there, just click it. Give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.